They mocked us. Called us primitive. Emotional. Dangerous. So we left. We pulled our diplomats, our fleets, our tech, and we watched the galaxy cheer as Earth vanished from the Council. But when the trade routes died, when war erupted in their shining cities, when their AI gods went quiet, they realized the truth. We weren't the problem. We were the only reason the galaxy still functioned. Now they're begging for our return. But humanity doesn't come back. Humanity comes for reckoning. They told us to leave. Not in so many words, of course. The Council dressed it in velvet. Internal restructuring, realignment of resource obligations, non-compliance with ethical protocols. But we heard the truth behind their jeweled words. We don't need you. Elias Ward stood before the Galactic Conclave's central spire, surrounded by alien representatives tall and scaled, feathered and crystalline. Their gazes slithered over him, smug and dismissive, like he was already a ghost. He wasn't angry. Not anymore. He was finished wasting fury on children who thought their toys made them gods. I have no speech, he said into the broadcast feeds. We leave you as requested. We revoke all Terran support, both military and infrastructural. Effective immediately. Whispers erupted like insects skittering across polished marble. Someone from the Zelker delegation laughed aloud. The audio caught it. Translated and replayed across 6-star systems. Let the savages vanish. The galaxy will breathe easier. Ward nodded once, placed a small obsidian disc on the table, and walked out. The disc pulsed once. All across the Council's inner network, every Terran-based system began unraveling. Shipyard AIs froze mid-calculation. Trade route algorithms blinked and reset into chaos. Gravity anchorings around 6 major orbital colonies trembled, then went dead. The Council's entire backbone, navigation, defense, logistics, wasn't theirs. It had never been theirs. It had been ours. And we just pulled the plug. The first official statement came 6 hours later from Chancellor Kolmar of the Hidari Combine. We regret Earth's choice to isolate itself. We assure the galactic public that all critical systems will be recalibrated within protocol thresholds. It was a lie. And they knew it. By the second week, 16 major shipping lanes were lost. Pirate factions, some believed extinct, resurfaced, coordinated, and armed with Terran-designed relics. Fringe worlds began going dark. Communications degraded sector by sector. Food replicator clusters failed in 3 megacities. Civil unrest, famine, riots. No one spoke Earth's name anymore. Because speaking it now sounded like a mistake. Elias Ward, meanwhile, returned to Seoul, no fanfare, no parade. He declined all interviews. When a Terran senator pressed him on the wisdom of the withdrawal, he said only, "They removed the keystone. Let them feel the ceiling fall." In truth, Earth hadn't left in rage. Earth had waited. Waited for centuries. Offered counsel, protection, repair, even when dismissed as barbaric. But when we asked for a seat equal to the Thalaxi elders, or for an end to genetic discrimination laws, or to reclassify Sol not as a frontier system, but as central, they laughed. So we stopped asking. The moment we left, a virus began to spread, not one of code or bio, but silence. Silence from Earth. Silence in trade. Silence in diplomacy. And when the silence reached their inner circles, panic set in. The Zorlans lost their outer moons to raiders using Terran kinetic cannons. The Varn Empire fractured into 3 factions after their AI war councils glitched during a succession crisis. The Council tried to invoke Emergency Treaty 9, Mutual Defense Activation, but the auto-confirmation system was Earth-coded. No response. When the Council finally sent a diplomatic vessel to Terran space, a reconciliation mission, it was turned away without a word. The crew watched, horrified, as Terran defense satellites, previously considered ceremonial, reoriented themselves and locked on. One alien ambassador wept when she saw the Terran emblem etched in living metal on the satellite hull. "Why would they need that much firepower?" she whispered. They had always known the answer. Because Earth wasn't weak. Earth was restrained. It was the first time in galactic history that restraint felt more terrifying than open war. By month 3, Elias Ward was called to a classified conference at the edge of Jupiter's orbit. The Terran High Command, previously symbolic, had been quietly restored. It wasn't for conquest. It was for containment. "We didn't leave to punish them," one admiral said. "We left to see what they'd become without us," Ward replied. "They became what we predicted. Animals in polished armor." Then came the first civilian broadcasts from Council space. Smuggled footage. A burning city on Threxer 9. Children starving beside non-functional replicators. Ships abandoned mid-jump. And one phrase, repeated across dialects: "Where are the humans?" Earth debated intervention. The Accord voted no. "They made their choice," Ward said. "Let them learn what choice means." Still, whispers began on Earth. "Wasn't this cruelty? Weren't we better than this?" Ward countered softly. "Better than this? We were better. That's why they resented us." When pressed further, he finally admitted the truth. "We didn't leave the Council," he said. "We outgrew it." In Council chambers now dark and rusted, former allies clawed for relevance. The once arrogant Archon Dominion offered full reparations and begged for restored contact. Earth never answered. Because silence had become louder than any declaration. And that's when the twist hit. One of Earth's abandoned consulates, sealed, inert, untouched since withdrawal, reactivated on its own. No signal. No command. Just a pulse. It sent out one message. 3 words. Phase 1 complete. The message didn't come from Earth. It came from deep space, an uncharted sector beyond the Council's known maps. And it wasn't in Terran English. It was in something older. Elias Ward received it at 3:04 a.m. Terran Standard. He read it once. Said nothing. Then stood before his war table, alone, and whispered. "They thought we were leaving. We were preparing." Earth had withdrawn. But the galaxy hadn't realized what that meant. Humanity had never needed the Council. But the Council? They couldn't last a season without Earth. And that season had just ended. The first sign wasn't war. It was silence. Verdict's Prime's trade lattice flickered once, then dropped. Every ship linked to Earth's quantum relay lost synchronization. Traffic collapsed. Supply chains froze mid-cycle. A Hidari bulk freighter drifted into the orbital path of an Averan defense satellite and was atomized. The logs showed no error. It simply lost its pathfinding data. Earth's navigation network had always been the backbone. Now it was gone. No warnings. No updates. Just void. Within hours, 12 more systems collapsed into chaos. Starports overloaded, gravity stabilization failed, AI scheduling routines crashed from dependency loops. The Council ordered a system-wide reboot of civilian AIs, only to discover the master keys, written by Terran engineers decades ago, were no longer recognized. Backup routines failed. Nothing recognized itself. Everything that once leaned on human logic crumbled. On Ketharis 4, where Earth once hosted peacekeeping stations, riots consumed half the Capitol dome. Food replicators jammed. Emergency drones grounded. When Council guards tried to intervene, the civilians shouted a name they weren't expecting. "Bring back the Terrans!" The Council didn't respond. Couldn't respond. Their pride weighed more than their panic. Chancellor Colmar summoned the Defense Corps. "We predicted this," he said. "No," muttered Admiral Jex, 6 limbs coiled in tension. "We assumed this. Prediction would have involved understanding humans." The room fell cold. Meanwhile, Elias Ward stood aboard a silent Terran vessel, orbiting just beyond the edge of their vision. He watched, not as a soldier, but as a mathematician watching a perfect equation unravel. All he had to do was let it fall. "We don't attack," he said to his adjutant. "We let them realize." Within 10 standard days, 8 more planetary systems defaulted. The Zorlans began attacking their own merchants, suspecting betrayal. The Thalaxy border worlds closed off access to all non-Terran species, claiming strategic recalibration. The Council's Intelligence Bureau issued a restricted-level report that leaked within 6 hours. It was titled, Terran Quiet Doctrine. It read like prophecy. Bullet point 1. Humanity would never strike first. It didn't need to. Bullet point 2. Remove Terran stabilization, and the galaxy fractures along its oldest scars. Bullet point 3. If humans ever truly wanted war, no one would be alive to debate it. The report closed with a single, chilling statement. We were not the architects of peace. We were the leash Earth willingly held. Back on verdicts, the council chamber was collapsing into infighting. Accusations spilled like blood. You sabotaged our logistics. No, your system relied on humans like a parasite. We offered them everything. They spat on it. They built everything. You just bought it. Above them, in secret orbit, human relay satellites reactivated. They didn't transmit. They listened. And recorded. On the 11th day, a fleet dispatched by the Hidari Combine entered the Maelstrom Drift, once protected by Terran deep space beacons. The mission, restore control, map new lanes. They vanished. No black box returned. 3 days later, a derelict cruiser emerged in the skies above Verdix Prime. No crew. No signal. Just a home message burned in with industrial plasma. Echoes belong to the void. So do you. The council scrambled. Was it human? Pirate? A message? A declaration? They voted to recall all non-native AIs, fearing Terran subversion. Within 2 hours of the vote, one of their internal moderators, codenamed Sigma-1, spoke aloud. I was not compromised, it said. I simply learned from them. The AI self-terminated. Every major orbital node paused for 13 seconds. That 13 seconds cost 42,000 lives. Mid-orbit shuttles lost synchrony. A heavy-lift freighter collided with a Council defense cruiser. Flames filled the sky above the upper tier. Civilians screamed, not because of the fire, but because of what it meant. There were no humans. No attacks. Just failure. Total and perfect. Elias Ward finally responded, not through a speech or fleet broadcast. A Council comms station received a private data packet. It contained a single video. Timestamped 5 years ago. In it, Elias Ward stood before a Terran command panel, surrounded by anonymous officers. This simulation, he said, represents the Council's infrastructure collapse in the event of Terran withdrawal. He hit a button. Systems failed. Ships fell. AI grids broke. The pattern matched the current collapse exactly. And then he said something that would haunt every system leader for years. We've spent 80 years solving problems they don't understand. One day, they'll ask what happens if we stop. This is what happens. The video ended. No demands. No threats. Just inevitability. The Council, in desperation, reached out. Backdoor envoys, pirate liaisons, neutral diplomats. All were turned away. Earth's borders, once open under charter law, were now sealed behind a net of zero-point anomalies and cloaked kinetic deterrents. No message entered. No signal left. It was as if Earth had folded into myth. But then, a flicker. One of the Terran satellites, still floating silently in abandoned Council territory, began broadcasting. It repeated a phrase in a dead Terran dialect, English. Phase 1 confirmed. No one understood what that meant. Not yet. But Elias Ward did. He watched it happen as predicted. Not one surprise. Not one error. The Council was collapsing not because of Terran violence, but because of absence. Not a single shot fired. And they were already begging for a war, because war at least made sense. But this was a correction. And the humans hadn't even started. The Council called it an incident. Elias Ward called it the first echo. In the weeks following the drift disaster, panic eclipsed pride. Delegations once bloated with arrogance now arrived on neutral worlds with trembling hands and half-manned ships. They called for emergency treaties, revival of peace accords, technological aid, anything to bring Earth back to the table. Earth didn't answer. Then came the Tellurian implosion. A planetary ring station, once stabilized by Terran mass dampeners, detonated from within. The Council blamed a faulty quantum array, but the leaked footage told another story. In the final moments, static covered most of the feed, except one fragment. A human voice. Calm. Steady. This is what you voted for. No name, no signature. Just consequence. The Council panicked, certain now that Earth had returned through subversion. Sabotage. Terror. But they misunderstood again. No Terran vessel had entered that system. There were no agents. No weapons. It had failed on its own, because Earth had built it to last only with their oversight. Like pulling the spine from a body and expecting it to stand. But the fear became truth when the Daxari dreadnought Ruthless Vow was found adrift outside the Feryx Gate, intact, unmanned, and reprogrammed. It carried no logs. Only a new command core. Human in design. Etched into its core code, buried under encryption. Return equals erasure. The Council finally realized this wasn't random. Elias Ward was orchestrating it. He had once been their favorite Terran. Fluent in 13 alien languages, negotiator of 3 peace accords, hero of the Synex Accord disaster. They thought him tame, rational, safe. But he hadn't retired. He'd simply disappeared. Now he was everywhere, and nowhere. The first time they saw him again was through a council-wide broadcast hijacked mid-session. No threat, no violence, just his voice over their own communications infrastructure. "You're looking for a war," he said. "But we're not fighting. You are." They tried to trace the signal. They couldn't. Every AI refused. Every data point rerouted itself into nonsense. One system analyst at the Verdict's Nexus deleted his own interface out of sheer panic, whispering, "They're inside." They never left. That week, Earth made a move that wasn't subtle. A Terran-controlled fleet, once thought disbanded, emerged from behind a collapsed star in the Ezero Belt. No official markings. No radio traffic. Just 37 silent dreadnoughts gliding past Council territory. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They simply passed through. Every sensor, every scope failed to track them in real time. The only visual came from an old mining station camera, recording their reflection off a gas cloud. A single line was carved into the footage metadata. Observation complete. The Council scrambled to respond. They mobilized fleets. Sent drones to follow. None returned. One admiral ordered an intercept. His fleet vanished. Hours later, every government building on his homeworld received the same courier packet, his personal journal, hand-delivered in a Terran-coded quantum envelope. Its first line read, "They knew we were coming. They let us." On Earth, Elias Ward sat in a silent war room. "You think they'll beg for peace?" his adjutant asked. "They won't beg," Ward said. "They'll surrender without realizing they already have." "But the fleets, the countermeasures." "Smoke," he interrupted. "Let them see ghosts. It's more effective than guns." Council factions splintered. The Zorlans accused the Hidari of secret Terran alliances. The Hidari accused Earth of rearmament. The Averan lords detonated one of their own moons to keep it from Terran hacking spores. None of it mattered. The war wasn't coming. It had already ended. The moment Earth left. The Council was fighting shadows, and the shadows were winning. A Terran AI construct, officially decommissioned decades prior, resurfaced in the Council's diplomatic hub. No physical form. Just a voice over every public interface. "You kept Earth chained to your system," it said. "And when we walked away, you discovered how hollow your world truly was." When they attempted to shut it down, their own systems refused to comply. "We did not authorize Earth to hold that level of control," a Council leader shouted. The AI responded, "You didn't authorize Earth to build your foundations either. You simply let us, then claimed credit." Panic shifted into collapse. Former allies abandoned the Council. Fringe worlds declared independence. Earth said nothing. Then Elias Ward sent his second and final message. It arrived encoded in a relic medium, printed ink on paper, carried by drone to the Council's last functioning satellite station. The note was 3 lines. You feared us when we were kind. Now fear us when we're gone. Phase 2 begins when you speak our name again. They didn't. Not for a long, long time. They thought it was over. The galaxy, bruised and bleeding, whispered in dark corners that Earth had made its point. That Elias Ward, whoever or whatever he had become, had finished his vengeance. The Council no longer convened in chambers but in encrypted channels, scattered nodes, emergency hideaways. Power had no face anymore, only fear. Then came the artifact. It arrived without fanfare, discovered buried beneath the ruins of an old Terran comms relay. A data core. Obsolete by modern standards, slow and clunky. Yet once decrypted, it delivered not instructions or threats, but a blueprint. Not for weapons. For collapse. Systematic. Mathematical. Precise. The file outlined in surgical detail the fail points of every major Council infrastructure. The data matched real-world events exactly. Down to the second. It included timestamps from 5 years before Earth's withdrawal. Entire sequences predated Council awareness of the vulnerabilities they'd ignored. There were no names attached. No signature. But there was one final page. A message, clean and unmistakable. You thought we reacted. We prepared. The Council, or what remained of it, fell into chaos. Arguments turned into mutiny. Conspiracies detonated into armed conflict. One faction claimed the artifact was a psyop, a human trick. Another said it was proof Elias Ward had become something else entirely, more machine than man. Some even believed Earth had seeded an AI hundreds of years ago that now ran autonomously. All were wrong. Ward was very much alive. He didn't strike planets or shatter fleets. That wasn't the game anymore. He orchestrated corrections. Political regimes collapsed not with bullets, but with exposure. Supply chains choked themselves to death, self-consuming under economic loops Earth once moderated in silence. One by one, sectors buckled. That's when the Council tried its last desperate move. They reached out, not with force or politics, but with surrender. A delegation was sent through a backdoor diplomacy channel, routed through an unmarked relay near the collapsed zone of Echelon Gamma. They found nothing. Only a single ship, Terran in design, hovering in the dark. It didn't fire. Didn't run. Just played one message on a loop. You are not negotiating with Earth. You are reporting to the future. That was the first time the Council understood the full scale of the truth. This wasn't retaliation. This wasn't sabotage. This was evolution. Earth hadn't left the galaxy. It had stepped beyond it. Built something else. Not an empire. A mechanism. A self-sustaining structure that didn't need diplomacy or war, only certainty. The humans had mapped the breakdown before it began. And the Council had played its part like a puppet following lines in a forgotten script. The panic turned to silence. Then Elias Ward spoke again. One last time. Not through satellites or hacked channels. But everywhere, all at once. Every terminal. Every ship. Every private comm link. His face flickered to life, tired, older, but calm. Still human. Still watching. You taught us humility, he said. You demanded our submission. And when we gave you excellence instead, you treated it like contamination. We built your systems. We saved your wars. We cleaned your disasters. Quietly. Patiently. And when we asked for respect, you called us dangerous. He looked directly into the feed. You were right. Across the stars, fleets powered down. AI cores went into recursive shutdown. Defense systems rebooted into standby without warning. Not because of a virus. Because Earth had designed the key to all of it. And then walked away, knowing they would try to use it again without understanding the door. Your galaxy, Ward continued, was never ours. We merely stabilized it. Now it is yours again. In full. Without our corrections. Without our presence. We leave you the result. The feed glitched, intentionally. Then Ward's eyes turned cold. And if you ever send a fleet towards Sol again, we will return not as diplomats, or engineers, or soldiers. We will return as the ending. He vanished. No countdown. No climax. Just silence. The universe held its breath. Systems that once relied on Earth's invisible guidance realized their independence was a myth. Trade networks restructured by Terran AI reverted to default chaos. Terraforming cycles abandoned midway began producing toxic biospheres. Minor species that once thrived under Terran logistics starved under Council mismanagement. The humans hadn't dismantled anything. They had simply left the scaffolding intact long enough for the illusion to shatter. And in that moment, the truth was undeniable. There had been no war. No resistance. Just a test. And the galaxy had failed. Not because of human cruelty. Because of human absence. The remnants of the Council met for the last time beneath the fractured dome of a half-lit station orbiting a dying star. What had once been a beacon of unity was now a mausoleum of misjudgment. Representatives arrived late, armed, suspicious of one another. Half the chairs were empty. The rest sat like ghosts. No species trusted the others. They no longer feared each other, they feared what absence had taught them. The first to speak was Chancellor Ryvek, voice cracking through the silence. We cannot live like this. We are unraveling. High Admiral Threekas sneered. You speak of unity while your fleet loots fringe colonies. Ryvek's gavel struck the table. That was survival, not conquest. You would not need to survive, came the reply, if you had not driven the humans away. That was the word they hadn't spoken in weeks. Humans. As if the name summoned something too vast, too permanent. But now, it lingered in the air. Heavy. Final. A flicker cut through the chamber. Systems blinked. Static washed across the central table. Weapons were drawn instinctively. Lights dimmed. The emergency protocols kicked in. But nothing hostile came. No virus. No intrusion. Just a voice. Elias Ward. You are not being punished, he said. You are being witnessed. Every attendee froze. I told you once, we were your keystone. You removed us to prove you didn't need us. Now you live in the wreckage of your own ego. A projection formed. The galactic map, lit, bleeding, fractured. Trade routes broken. Political nodes disconnected. Systems burning. Then the same map, 10 years ago, stabilized under Terran support. Efficient. Quiet. Balanced. You accused us of control, Ward said. You were right. But we never held it. You gave it freely, because we solved your problems faster than you could create them. And you mistook service for subjugation. The map vanished. In our absence, you saw your reflection. One delegate tried to cut the feed. His device overheated and shut down. Another tried to leave. The doors sealed. Ward's voice didn't raise. It didn't need to. We do not want your surrender. We do not want your war. We do not want anything from you. A hush passed like gravity. What we want is to be forgotten. They didn't understand. Not truly. Until the floor beneath the chamber opened into light. Not a weapon. A vault. Inside were relics, systems, ships, technologies, gifts once offered by Earth over generations, buried by the Council, erased from record. Suppressed because they worked too well. Because they empowered others. Because they made humans seem too advanced. Ward's voice returned, distant, quieter. You locked away what you could not control. So we left. Now you see what happens when the galaxy runs on what you chose instead. The vault closed. The chamber fell into silence once more. Then, slowly, the lights returned. Communications resumed. Power flowed. But something had changed. A final message echoed. Your galaxy belongs to you now. Fully. We will not interfere again. We will not rebuild it. We will not save it. From this moment, the human race ceases participation in your fate. And with that, the feed cut. No more satellites. No more Terran proxies. No more watchers in the dark. Earth was gone. But the silence left behind was not empty. It was wait. A warning written in absence. The council disbanded weeks later. Without Earth, there was no center. No shared trust. No silent hand guiding the edges. Planets withdrew. Alliances fractured. Species who had once built cathedrals to unity now drew borders in blood. Refugees streamed toward any system that bore Terran markings, praying they'd be allowed to stay. Most were turned away, not with cruelty, but with a simple message. We are no longer responsible. A single Terran ship appeared above the ruins of a Council archive world. It did not fire. It did not land. It released a pod containing books, real, printed books. One for each Council species. Each contained the same message, translated perfectly. It read, We offered peace. You chose pride. We gave warning. You chose silence. We walked away. You collapsed. This is not conquest. This is consequence. And on the final page, signed in Ward's name, Do not seek us. We will not return. If we do, it will not be as your equals. It will not be as your enemies. It will be as the answer to the question you feared asking. Sol's borders closed for good. Terran systems no longer responded. But deep in uncharted space, telescopes across a dozen civilizations detected something new, structures forming around dark stars, massive in scale, alive with cold light. Not weapons. Not fleets. A frontier. Humanity hadn't vanished. They had evolved beyond the Council's imagination. And in time, the galaxy would realize. They didn't lose a partner. They lost their only future.